Be a good girl and everything is going to be fine. Be careful who you're taking the advice from. I was terrified. Don't ask the permission. It doesn't have to be hard to start something new if you start slowly. Take away the pressure, your confidence will grow.
Hi, Julia. Welcome on the podcast. I'm really honored to have you as a guest today.
Thank you.
I was wondering, before we get into the entire interview, can you please tell us a little bit about yourself and what it is that you do?
Yeah, of course. I'm a mentor and I'm a former Sony Masterworks executive producer. What I do is I help ambitious women to architect their next career move and to enhance their visibility and communication.
So, if a woman comes to you with a problem, like what problem do they have and how do you solve that?
Oh, that's a really good question. It's a complex one, but I will try to answer it in short. Through my producer experience and my mentorship experience, I developed my own method, which is called Mosaic of Life. What happens usually when people are people want to make a change in their life and their career, and they can make two mistakes. So the first mistake we see is that they're looking at the change and like, okay, I'm going to change my entire life. And that is pretty complicated, right? The other extreme would be like, okay, I would like to change my career, or I would like to enhance my public speaking skills, for instance, my communication, appear more executive. But what happens is that they're looking at only this area in isolation. And when you look at it in isolation, it probably you also need to look at the different areas of your life, because everything eventually is interconnected. That's why I call it Mosaic of Life. So my method is based on 3 levels. Like imagine if there is a pyramid, right? And there's a first level is a foundation, which is a life resilience and the inner state. The second level is a professional realization. And the third level is the visibility and communication. That's only the top. And so what we do is that when a person comes to me and says, hey, I would like to enhance my public speaking skills because I am now in an executive position and I need to, deliver on a certain level. And I'm saying, okay, this is great, but then let's look at how situation is, for instance, at your foundation. How is your life resilience? How do you manage your time? How do you manage relationship with your family, with your friends, with yourself? Because if that ground is a bit shaky, I can give you a lot of tools, but at a moment when something is going wrong, you are not going to be able to just hold it all together. And a really good example of this is a client that I recently worked with. She has been promoted and she has a lot of knowledge already. She has been promoted like 2 levels up. She's a younger girl, very talented. And she came and said, okay, I really need to get my public speaking skills and communication to the level where I can communicate just as they are. But as we started working, I quickly realized that her foundation was very shaky because there was no confidence, no real confidence yet, no self-trust, no trust in her own ability, right? Mm-hmm. And this is where we started the work. So that comes from within. And then once we have fixed the foundation, we have straightened it. I added a lot of tools we practiced for the communication, for executive presence, and then everything comes together. So this is how I like to look at this. So it's not just one area in isolation, because if I would be just looking at her saying like, hey, okay, these are the tools, this is what we do, this is what we practice, it doesn't work like this. Because in a moment when you have a bad day, and let's face it, we might have a bad day and we still have to deliver. So what do? Like if you're strong at your core, on the inside, then you can really deliver by using all the tools.
That sounds so interesting. And if we go back a little bit, because you said if you try to fix your entire life, it will not work. And I find that really interesting because when I want to change something in my life, I'm usually saying, okay, now everything is going to be perfect. I'm going to work out every day. I'm going to eat only healthy food. I'm going to sleep 9 hours a day or at night. And then everything has to be in alignment. But when something fails, which it usually does because your life is not perfect, then I'm like, oh, okay, never mind. Everything is going wrong. So now I don't have to do it, or I'm quitting or something. That thought usually gets into my head. What do you think is the solution for that?
People generally, they tend to get motivated by someone, like someone as big and cool as Tony Robbins. They go to his workshop or to Week with Destiny with Tony, and they will be like, okay, I'm motivated, I can go, I'm gonna get this big hairy ambitious goal, right? And they only see this goal. But the thing is that if you are, like, speaking metaphorically, you want to climb a mountain, right? For instance, I never climbed a mountain really. So if I'm looking at a mountain, I'm saying, I'm gonna go, I'm gonna go. But it will take me several thousand steps to get there. But not just the steps, it will take me to get the proper gear, to get a proper training, and so on and so on. So my take on this is that when we're trying to climb the Mount Everest from the get-go, yes, it's ambitious, it's great, but I think it will eventually fail. Like this goal will fail, and we'll be like, oh yeah, I can't do this. But I would say, why don't you just start making very small steps? And by making small steps, like, make these micro goals. And then every time when you achieve a goal, you can actually gain more confidence, because you achieve this micro goal. You're like, oh, I have done this. This is really nice. Okay, what's next? And how is it going to, like, decomposition, right? How will it get me to the next one and the next one and the next one?
Oh, that sounds so logical, actually.
Yeah, because if people say, hey, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do gym 5 times a week and healthy food, and I'm not going to drink alcohol, and I'm going to do this and this and this and everything. But I mean, eventually it's just too much to implement for your brain, for your nervous system, for your environment, and so on. But why don't you just start by something small?
And it's also a lot of pressure in one.
Yes. And like, pressure is crazy. And the thing is that when we speak about confidence, when you're applying too much pressure on yourself, you will most likely quickly lose confidence, right? But if you don't apply too much pressure by saying, like, okay, in 2 years I want to be there, but right now, like, in the next months, this is what I want to achieve. It is smaller. And then you go and you really achieve it.
Yeah. Oh, I love that, actually, because I'd done a workshop of a woman that was on my podcast before, of Ellen. She invited me to her workshop, and she's like, okay, what is it that you want in life? I was like, I want a private jet, I want a yacht, I want all of these big things. And then she asked me, okay, but what do you want in the next month? I don't know. I have no idea. And I think most people don't know. They just know in the future, what does success look like, or what you want, or what is your goal? But then, what do you want next week? And I love that you're saying that we have to focus on the now, and like maybe the next week or next month, instead of in 5 years.
Yes. I will give you another example. For instance, with the Mosaic of Life, I have a certain framework. And when people come to me, I give them this framework that they can fill out the questions. They get the points. They can rate themselves, okay, like, make comments and so on. And they come to the first session, and we look at it, at the entire life mosaic. And we see, okay, this is working well. This is not working so well. Okay, where is your focus? Where's the primary focus? Where's the secondary focus? Of course, we cannot fix everything at the same time, but we will be working across all of these 3 levels, as I explained to you, right? And so once we work through this mosaic, we say, okay, this is our departure point. This is what we want to, where you want to be in 3 months, correct? That's we do this timeline exercise. This is where you want to be in 3 months, because I typically work for 3 months on the mentorship track with people. But then we will also look at what is going to be there in a year, or maybe in 3 years from now. What is your timeline, right? And this is great. And this may be your private jet or a yacht, or the life when you work 4 hours a week, like Tim Ferriss wrote in his book, and so on. This is great, but it's not realistic to achieve it in just 3 months. So we have this candy in the future, but then to get there, you also need a certain level of confidence. Do you believe that very soon you will have a private jet? I don't think so. right? So what happens is like, okay, what is realistic to achieve in in 3 months? And then we work towards this. And that is achievable. That brings people confidence. It's like making this very little steps. When you have this big hairy goal somewhere in the distant future, it's very difficult to make the composition of what do you actually have to do to get there. Once you have this goal with like in front of you in just 3 months, you can say, okay, this is my goal, and what is my strategy, and what are the actions that I have to take to get there. And then you just do the composition, and then things start happening. And but people tend to think sometimes too big, and it becomes too much in their head, and they're like, oh my god, there's so much I want to do, so much I want to achieve, I'm a mess, I cannot focus, so what do I do? Well, you just make it a little bit smaller and make it a bit easier for yourself. Take away the pressure, and when you take away the pressure, your confidence will grow faster.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense. I love that actually, because people online, especially on social media, they say you need more pressure. Pressure creates diamonds. Oh, you need to do harder stuff and wake up at 5 a.m. every day and take cold showers and all of these things that are like the hustle culture.
Yeah.
And I've done that for like a year or 2 years, and it was awful. Didn't grow my confidence at all. Not at all. Not a single bit. But then, as you say, make it smaller. I think that's actually really, really good, because when I think back and I have my to-do list and I check off something, I'm like, yes, I did that. And I have just this amazing dopamine or sensation where I just feel good about myself.
Yes.
So that makes so much more sense than waking up at 5 and doing all the crazy things, and you done it, but then you're like exhausted for the rest of the day.
Yeah. Plus, it's like, be careful who you're taking the advice from, because when I was writing my book last year, I've done quite some research, and it turned out, for instance, like when there was a chapter about the morning routines and the time management, I realized that 2/3 of the books, if not more, on time management and how to manage your time and tasks and everything is written by men. But what works for men doesn't work for women in terms of managing the time, for instance, right? And what works for one person, like take an ice bath at 5 o'clock in the morning, it would not be something for me. It would not be something for good for my health. But as they say, for instance, for the sport, I don't like skiing, but I like swimming. Like, find your thing, and then what you can do is like make a test round and to see what works for you. So you say, okay, every week I will test one activity that I like, or something about the morning routine that I like. There's this brilliant book which is called My Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod. He explains this concept of savers, like a selection of actions that you can do during your morning routine to enhance your day, to give a boost to the start of your day. I love it, and I do quite a lot of these things, but I also know that some people, they don't do they don't do visualization or affirmation, and they don't do journaling, but they will do the exercising and meditation and so on. I mean, you don't have to make it all perfectly. You just have to find what works for you. If you're going to meditate, don't say, I'm going to meditate every day. Why? Start like, if you have never meditated, just start with, I will meditate 3 times a week. Easy. Achievable? Yes. Because you just, put these marks like, okay, done, done, done. And in the end of the week, okay, it wasn't hard. It doesn't have to be hard to start something new if you start slowly.
So many women today are very ambitious and have a lot of experience. Yet when they speak up, they feel their energy basically dropping, and then stress takes over and they change into a very insecure and hesitant person instead. Why is that?
I'll be speaking from my own experience and from the experience of my clients. Very often what happens is that woman hesitates because she starts doubting herself. She starts doubting herself, even then she has the competence, even that she has experience and the knowledge, and she can really bring something on the table. There are moments when she starts overthinking and doubting herself. And this is what I call it all depends on the story that we are telling ourselves in our mind. You know, there's a saying, it's all between your ears.
Yeah.
This is exactly what it is. Because if you start like, if even a moment the person starts saying, like thinking, hey, am I saying the right thing? Am I like putting it, like wording it correctly? What are they going to think about me? What if they just don't like it? And so on. All of this. So what happens is that this thought is a negative thought. So this negative thought will give a signal to our body, and our body will start feeling uncomfortable. And our body will start feeling uncomfortable, which means like the palms will start sweating, and then you start feeling a bit like, oh, okay, tense and so on. And once you start feeling this tension, this is when it goes back to your brain. Oh my God, I feel so tense. Why is that? Okay, I have to speak. I don't know. And it becomes a vicious circle between your thought and body, and then again the thought, and eventually you have to say something out loud. And in this state, it's not going to come out nicely. It will not come out like, hey, I mean what I say, and I can really back it up by my knowledge and by my experience and so on. So I can give you a trick for this. Right? Shall we do the
Tell
trick?
me.
Yes. So this is what I teach my clients, and it works really well. If you have a tendency to overthinking yourself and like making yourself small and like thinking, I'm not sure how to say it, I'm not sure if I need to say it, I'm doubting myself, start noticing the thought. I'm in a meeting and I want to say something. Before your body starts being super tense and the palms are sweating, start thinking about, hey, try to catch this thought. What is it right now? So for instance, it can be it, and it most likely will be something recurring like, oh, I'm going to look like an idiot. Or it's going to be like, oh, this person is gonna give me this look, and I don't know, what if they laugh at me? It's very often the same and the same. Or what, like if person is presenting something, what if I will forget my words? Right? It's usually a recurring thought, like one or two. So once you notice it and you're like, okay, this is what crosses my mind at the moments like this, then what you do is that you are going to get like a magic pill, right? Like an anti-poison, so that you are going to think of a thought that is going to neutralize the negative thought. So for instance, what if I will forget my words, right? But then I will be like, what if I'll forget my words? And I immediately tell myself, I'm well prepared and I'm going to deliver value. I'm very well prepared and I'm going to deliver value. And the point here is not to let your brain to cause this body reaction, right? So like, what if I will forget my words? I'm well prepared. I'm grounded. I'm going to give value to this community, to this audience, and so on. And that helps you to reprogram your brain right there.
Because I'm thinking about it, it's basically you overriding the thought that is happening in your head.
You're overwriting it. But the thing is that the trick is to override the thought before, so that when it happens in a stressful moment, you are ready.
Oh, okay.
You are ready. It comes to your mind and you're like, hup, no, that will be my thought. And the body will be like, okay, I'm well prepared. I feel great. And then you're going to speak, because when you feel differently on the inside, you are going to project different kind of energy and different kind of confidence. Right? And so instead of like, I think that this is going to enrich our project, etc., etc., no, you're going to say, I believe that I have an idea that is worth discussing.
That comes across so different.
Very differently, right?
Yeah.
And it's all because of the thought.
Do you repeat it how many times or just constantly?
First, you notice the
Yes.
thought, the negative thought. Then you think of your own magic pill, let's put it this way, right? In the moment. So you're literally overwriting your thought. And then in the moment, you start doing this. But eventually, you will stop having these negative thoughts, because you have repeated it so many times. It will just get out of your system. And if it comes back, Like when you don't have a good day, for instance, you didn't sleep well, and you have to come to work at 9 o'clock in the morning, you have to deliver this presentation, and all eyes are on you. This is when you're overwriting it again. Because I'm explaining this, I use this as well. And there are great days when I don't need to use this. And there are days when I feel all over the place, for instance. Then I'm going to use this. I'm going to literally tell myself a different story.
I was a little bit nervous before the interview, as always. And then you told me to ground myself. Can you please shortly explain that as well? Because I thought that was a really, really good one.
Well, first of all, it's okay to be nervous. You know why? Because it shows that you care. If you would be completely chill and you don't care how it goes and so on, I would have questioned like, why are we here, right? Don't you care about the interviews? Don't you care about your podcast and the growth? So this is fine. There are two words which are similar, but they are the opposite at the same time: anxiety and excitement, right? Anxiety and excitement, you understand the difference, right? So when you say you're nervous, is it anxiety or is it excitement? Because the body is going to feel more or less the same. Like the hormones which are swirling right now in your body, being activated, is the same set of hormones. But it all comes to the story, what you're telling yourself. If you say, I'm anxious, okay, yeah, the body is a bit trembling, there is some tension and so on, right? I'm anxious, okay, fight or flight. But when you tell yourself, I'm excited, your body is also still vibrant, there is some tension, but the excitement is something positive. And so what I told you to do in the moment is to ground yourself through your feet. It's called somatic grounding. And what I told you to do before we started the podcast, I said, why don't we just put our feet on the ground and put all of our attention to our feet? You can you even move your toes a little bit, and how do they connect to the ground? How, is it nice? Is it soft? Is it warm? And so on. You put all of the attention there, and for a few seconds, it takes attention from your head to your feet. And this is when this mental, I call this the busy monkey mind slows down just a little bit. So this is called somatic grounding.
Somatic grounding. I've never heard of that, but when I tried it, when you told me to, I was like, it works in seconds.
It does.
Literally, immediately.
Yeah.
When women, male-dominated industries, don't get taken seriously, how are they presenting themselves differently than men?
I love this topic. I love this topic because this is also something that I like to train women for. And this is the journey that I've went through myself. When I was working at Sony Masterworks, there were a lot of, the higher you go, the more male executive you get in the boardroom and the discussions and so on. And sometimes I would be the only woman in the room, and I would still need to, bring my point across, or even tell them, okay, your team has to do this, your team has to do this, because as I was leading producer on a big project, there is such a term as is called executive presence. So executive presence, it's not just reserved for executives. It applies to any woman who wants to appear as calm, confident, grounded, someone who has, knowledge, content, but is also very friendly and self-secure and knows how to regulate her own emotions. So it can be practiced in the boardroom, but it can also be practiced at home. I'm a mom of a teenage girl, and I can tell you that I can also practice this calm, grounded, confident presence when I need to speak with her, when the only thing I want to do is I just want to yell. But I understand that it won't work this way, right? So executive presence is a thin line. It's like a sweet spot between when woman is appearing maybe a little bit too soft, and you can feel like, hey, I'm making myself a little bit smaller so that the other people will feel bigger, more confident, and I don't want to come across as someone who wants to overpower them, for instance. So that's a bit too soft of an angle. And the other side of this is that a woman can be like, okay, I'm just going to prove my point. I am dominant and I am a leader and I'm going to tell them all how to do. So that is way that comes across as too strong and too dominant. And when a woman comes to a boardroom and behaves this way, all the men present, they will be looking at her. They will see her not as a woman anymore, but they will see her like, okay, we are all boys here. But this is like very different because still you're a woman and you don't want to appear as an overpowering and over dominating, because there will be talks behind your back, most likely. So these are two extremes. And I would say that executive presence is when you really know your value and you don't have to prove it. You are just being there. You are coming across as friendly, calm. You can read the room and you can adjust on the go, but you're not going to play it too small to please the others, but you're also not going to try and dominate the world in this entire room.
Now, I wonder if you are in a leading role above men and you need to lead them and they don't take you seriously, isn't the only way to overpower them with like super dominance?
I don't believe that dominance works in the long term. It might work in a short term, like let's say if there's a sprint, right? And
Yeah.
you have to take a decision now and distribute task on the project, and you are the leader and people are like, I don't know, I don't feel it, and so on. They had to take certain decisions and to say, hey, okay, you know what? Thank you guys for contributing. This is what we're gonna do. Yes, this is dominant. But in the long run, I would say that switching on the cultural intelligence and emotional intelligence and understanding why is that happening, why is this person not connecting with me, maybe there's something like, maybe there's a cultural difference, for instance, right? I will give you a good example on this. So I had a client, she works in Switzerland in a major bank. She has been promoted and she had 2 people reporting to her, and then all of a sudden with a promotion she got a team of 8 people.
Oh, wow.
And she herself, she comes from originally from Russia, lives in Switzerland for a long time. And there was a man on her team. He was from the Middle East. And he did not want to take orders from her. They would have a meeting, they would decide on agree on doing certain things, and then he would just not deliver what he wanted to do. And she was saying like, okay, I don't know how to deal with this. What can I do? I have ordered him, I have asked him, it is not working. So we looked at, his roots. We worked on the cultural intelligence. How can he, and we figured out that the way that he gets feedback is very different from how she would normally provided him the feedback. And so once she adjusted it, all of a sudden he felt heard, he felt seen, he felt important, just because she changed the way that she gave him the feedback. And the working relationship started actually working out.
Wow. Oh,
Yeah.
that's very impressive. You also have a lot of experience working abroad. And I actually wonder, which countries did you go to? And how did they communicate differently? And what did you bring with you to today?
Which countries? Well, a lot of countries. The last time I counted, I think I realized projects in more than 40 countries in the world.
Wow.
Yeah, so I can tell you it's Eastern Europe, Scandinavia, Western Europe, Middle East, Asia, Australia, and North America. Yes.
Wow.
So the only continent I think I've not worked on is South America for now. For me, it's always very interesting to see, of course, the cultural aspect. There are 2 aspects that are that in the producing business that they are playing a big role. First of all, is a cultural aspect. So to understand how do people communicate, how direct or non-direct, what do they really mean, how do they provide feedback, are they confrontational or not at all? Because understanding the cultural difference makes you sort of a magician, because you can understand how to navigate difficult conversations, how to make better decisions within a team when you work with an international team. Because sometimes I would work with teams from where people were from Netherlands, UK, United States, Hungary, and so on, right? And Japan. And then people from Japan will have very different type of feedback comparing to people from UK or the States, or very direct Dutch people, and so on. And then I remember that I figured out also, as someone who comes from Russia, we are very confrontational. So if there is something wrong, we can just say it, right? We can confront person, you have promised this and this is not going to happen. And I was the only one on that side of the spectrum from the entire team. So I had to realize that I cannot just confront my entire team, because they'll come from different cultures. They'll just shut down. They will think, who is that person? Who is that person, like, so dominating,
Yeah.
right? So that is always like very interesting to understand culturally. How do you, like, who are these people? What is at their core, right? I love work of Erin Mayer, the author of the Culture Map book. I attended her workshop, like her live workshop. I learned a lot. And I use the culture mapping tool in my work with clients a lot, because it helps. It helps to understand why certain things are happening. So the cultural intelligence is one point. Another one is understand how to work across the different levels, layers. So for instance, again, in my work as a creative producer in the entertainment industry, I would have to work with the actors, with the creative people, with the directors, designers. I would have to work with the corporate, with the stakeholders, with people who provide the money, the investors, like the top producers and agents and so on. And then still, navigating, okay, what will the audience like, right? How do we communicate certain things to the audience? And this is very interesting, this, like, how you work across the cultures, and how do you work across the levels of different people? How do you navigate all that?
You are not afraid of conflict. So I want to dive deep a little bit deeper on that, because I think it's really interesting. I've personally not met a lot of people that come from Russia, except when I went to Bali.
Oh, yes.
There are a lot of Russians there.
Yeah.
And I always thought they were so serious, so direct, so very towards conflict.
Yeah.
I myself am the exact opposite. I do not search conflict. I absolutely do not engage in conflict whatsoever, which I should sometimes. And I have so much respect for the people that do. So how can women set clear boundaries without being super rude or without feeling very guilty?
Love this question. Yeah, I really love this question. For me, setting the clear boundaries as a woman, it comes from within, and it comes from my, first of all, understanding what my boundaries are, what are my absolute non-negotiables, what are my core values, and then defending them, protecting them from the place of dignity. Which means that I'm not going to apologize for saying no. I'm not going to argue about this. I'm just going to say, like, hey, unfortunately, this is not going to work for me. Because, of course, there are moments when you need to meet the person half the way. Will you be then thinking about it for the next 3 days, cursing yourself that you said yes when you wanted to say no? Right? Then this is not the right way. Or did you apologize 5 times by, I'm so sorry, I can't help you. No, I hope you're not going to hold it against me. Yeah, I just feel really bad about saying no to you. No, I don't want to feel bad about saying no to you. I want to feel good about standing my ground. In Japan, they have this art. So, for instance, when a vase or beautiful china cup is broken, they will not throw away the broken parts, but they will try to glue it back together. And all of the cracks, they're going to cover with a gold paint. And for me, this is a very dignified way to bring yourself back together and to keep yourself together. I might have a few cracks, but I'm now like put some gold on it, and I'm not gonna apologize for this. Right? I'm not gonna apologize for this. I'm not going to say, yeah, okay, I have these flaws. No, because I fill them with gold. Find an object that you feel, okay, this projects so much dignity for me. It can be a beautiful statue in a museum. For me, it's it might be this cup, right, with where the gold filled the cracks, or beautiful cup with a saucer. There's like 18th century china, which is, you can see in a museum in London in the castle, right? This is dignity, and for everyone it will be different object. But when you look at it and you're like, oh, this is it. So in a moment you can just remember that statue, remember that other object, and try to think, does the statue appear like hustling, apologetic? Probably not. So when there's some visual point of reference, it helps in the moment. So know yours.
I really love that, especially the cup that is broken and then they fill it with gold paint. I have so much respect for women that are just unapologetically themselves and they stand their ground. Because I think often women are too easily swayed into other people's directions or opinions. And they also don't want to hurt other people's feelings. And then other people get chosen above themselves.
I was born when the Soviet Union was still there, just before it ceased to exist. When I was brought up, I was told that be a good girl and everything is going to be fine. Just like, okay, these are the boundaries, this is what is expected of you, and this is how this is how you will live your best life. But this is absolutely not true. For instance, I was told that the adults are always right. And when I turned 15, and there was an adult in a family environment, like a distant relative, who did something really outrageous, and I looked at him, and I remember I allowed myself to yell at him, and that was for me a situation when I realized that adults are not always right. But then there was a period when I moved, and then I got married, and I got a child. And all of a sudden, I realized that my world is becoming again a little bit too boxy. And I don't think, I'm like, okay, this is my life, but I was not analyzing anything. I was not really growing and so on. And it only took a divorce for me to start changing, like getting in charge again of my life mosaic and just changing things and growing my confidence and learning new skills and so on. And the funny thing is that I used to be very timid when it would come to public speaking and to presenting. I was terrified. I had what they call glossophobia. It's a fear of public speaking, and it's one of the top few fears in the world. And I wanted to get over that fear. I had the goal. I was like, okay, I want to be one day on the TEDx stage. I want to talk to 3,000 people. If someone at that point put me on a stage with 3,000 people, I would faint, right? But I started taking very small steps, and the small steps were just working with the private tutors to understand what the root cause is, why is it so difficult for me to speak to the audience, and bit by bit, and like with the learning and with the practice and so on, at some point, I started getting out on stage, I started speaking, and then at some point I started also transferring my knowledge to the other people, to the other women who want to speak more confidently.
I can imagine that's like so inspirational. And now that you spoke about everything, where you come from and how your story basically went, it's not impossible for other people to do the same.
I hope that my story will inspire someone, because confidence is not something that you build overnight. Confidence is a combination of self-trust and also trust in my own capabilities.
I always used to think that you get confidence when you have achieved big things. So when I've been on stage, or when I have the private jet, or, that is, I attached my confidence to that. However, the more guests I speak with, the more I realize I don't think that's true. I think that's more superficial confidence. I think real confidence comes from doing as you say you're gonna do. Because if I say I'm gonna do something tomorrow and I do it, then I have this feeling of like, yeah, I can trust myself, as you said. If I don't do it, I'm like, oh, I'm a failure. I can't do anything, and my confidence drops. So I think what you say, trusting yourself and doing what you say you're gonna do, is what eventually builds confidence.
I have been in the entertainment industry for 25 years, started super early, like when I was 19. I have built a lot of confidence in myself as a producer. But then a year ago, I decided to close that chapter and that move fully into entrepreneurship. I realized that yes, I have to build a new layer of confidence. As entrepreneur and as a mentor, I can achieve certain things that I would love to achieve. Everything you do in general in life, you have to build a new layer of confidence.
Yeah.
And again, and again, and again.
So basically, what you're saying is that it's an ever growing process.
I believe so. Yeah. Because when it's ever going process if a person grows, because some people they do not, some people they choose, and it's their own choice, of course, right? They're like, okay, I finished university, I have this job. Especially I think in Asian countries, it's absolutely, like in China and Japan, it's normal to work in the same company for 40 years and then retire.
Oh.
And this is absolutely fine. So they have this life, and when it's very predictable, there's a child, there's a wife, there's a house, and it's all great, and you are confident in this environment. And then if you don't want to, change the career, move abroad, and so on, I don't think you really need to grow this extra layer of confidence.
Yeah.
Right? Because
Yeah.
things are good as they are.
Yeah.
And that's absolutely fine. It's everyone's choice. But I know, for instance, your aspiration, right? You started your podcast, which is great. You're inviting guests. People come, people agree. You're having great interviews. And with every interview that you do, you grow and your confidence grows.
Yeah. I remember my first interview, I was like shakingly nervous. And throughout, like, maybe the first 5 interviews, stuff went wrong. I forgot my mics and my phones died in the middle, and there was like stuff happening. And every single interview, I'm doing this mental checklist, like, do I have everything? And always there are fears, like, oh, what if my phone dies? What if this happens? What if that happens? But I think your tip, coming back from the beginning again, to have a override and constantly repeat it and use it when you need it, I think that's actually really, really good, because your thoughts also send out into the universe what is going to happen.
Yes.
Like the frequencies. I actually want to dive a little bit deeper into the entertainment industry, because you had a long career and you worked closely with people like Priscilla Presley, Ennio Morricone, and James Newton Howard. So I needed to Google the last two. But when I knew that James Newton Howard was the composer of The Hanging Tree, which is one of my favorite songs in The Hunger Games, my question to you is, since you worked closely with those celebrities, they seem so extremely confident online. Are they constantly on, constantly confident, and constantly ambitious?
The short answer to this is no, because they're human beings. They have their good days, they have their bad days. And I actually love this about them, because when I worked with all 3 of these people that you mentioned very closely, and they have to deal with the level of publicity and recognition every day. Of course, their confidence grows with every new work that they produce and present to the world, but it doesn't mean that they are not doubting. Like, for instance, like composers, they never write a piece and they think, okay, it's going to be a great one. No, they will be doubting, but then they will be like, okay, it probably will be fine. It will be received well. I hope so. And the confidence grows with each new piece, but it doesn't mean that they don't doubt as well. When they appear very confident on on the interviews. I also know what happens backstage. Some of them don't like it, but they have trained themselves. It's like a muscle, right? Like they have trained themselves to do it, and what works, what doesn't, and so on. So it's like ever like you're constantly training this muscle. But what I mostly like about them is that never put a person above yourself. Have respect, but do not put person on a pedestal, because once you do that, person can feel it, and it's no longer a healthy relationship, because you will appear as like a child. I'm looking for at you, down up, and the people can be just like, okay, well, we are not going to perceive you as an equal, and therefore there will not be strong working or a friendly relationship. They projected this very calm confidence, and they didn't have to prove anything. They were like, I'm just being. And for instance, now when I come across someone who is trying to show me how cool that person is, especially in the work environment, like inside I have this laughter, thinking like, who do you think you are and who you're trying to impress, right? Just be yourself, prove something through your actions, but don't try to put on this, I'm the coolest and I'm this and I'm that and so on, because that's not this is not how things are. Ennio Morricone, for instance, he was, I think, the most famous, like one of the most famous Italian composers of his time, beloved person in Italy, probably the second popular person in Italy after the Pope. And he was so humble. He was so
Really?
humble, so grounded, and so nice always in communication. And for me, he is a gold standard of how I want to be and how I want to be perceived.
People that are confident, they don't have to prove themselves because they feel it within themselves that everything is good. So maybe it's searching approval from other people to confirm that you're confident.
Let's deviate from the professional context. Let's go to
Yeah.
dating context, because I think that also shows it really well. Like,
Oh.
imagine, I'm sure you have been to some first dates, right? And so I have been too. After my divorce, I also started dating, and I've been to a few first dates before I met my current partner and we settled. And for instance, you really like a person, you really like the guy. And then you're looking at him and you're like, oh my God, I really want him to like me. I want him to like me. And then you start telling all the stories and like waving your hair and trying to be impressive and so on. Does it show you as a confident person?
No.
I don't think so. When you're trying too hard, a person will be like, wait a second. I somehow don't feel like this is the right way, right? And when you come there and you're like, okay, I know who I am, I know the woman I am, I know kind of a man I'm looking for, and I'm confident I'm going to find a person, and I'm going to bring my best version to the table, like to the dating night, and we will see how that goes. And that always kept me very grounded. I never tried to impress anyone. I always was myself. I remember that man, they told me like, wow, you're so authentic. You're not just like pretending, not trying. It's just so nice to have a conversation. This is what people appreciate. So, and it's exactly the same in a professional context. Don't try to impress someone on the first date. If for a second you take a focus from him, how you feel about him, and then take a focus on yourself. How do I feel about in his presence? How, right? How do I feel about his presence? How does he make me feel? What is his part? Like, I know how to play my part, but what is his part? Don't try to impress him, but see if he can impress you instead.
Oh,
Right?
That is so Russian. I love it.
I think this is very mature way
Yeah.
of looking at it.
What is one sentence every woman should stop saying right now?
When a woman says, just one thought, just wanted to add something, it sounds to me like, let me jump in with that little tiny comment. No, why, like, just to add something? No, I would like to add something. And it's a very different energy. Or, may I add something here? Don't ask the permission. I would like to add something here.
Oh, I love that. Because now I think back and I also sometimes do it.
We all do
Yeah.
it. We
Yeah.
all do it sometimes. But the thing is it's not about becoming perfect, but it's about becoming conscious. And when you can, you adjust.
Is there then also a sentence that a woman should say way more?
I believe that. This is how I see it. You can also say, I think, but I think believe. I believe sound much stronger.
As a final question on this podcast, I actually want to ask you, what is a communication skill that will give the young people that are listening right now the biggest advantage in the next upcoming 10 years?
I had a former colleague, and he could not put his thoughts into the words, so it makes perfect sense. He used a lot of filler words, and it was difficult to have a conversation, work-related conversation with him, because what is he really trying to say? However, when he was writing emails, he was using ChatGPT to write perfectly worded emails, and he was sending it out to people that that we worked with. But then what happened is that when he got on a Zoom call with these people, his wording was very different. And I understand, by being on these calls, I could see, like, in the eyes of people, they were like, what's happening? We do not understand. And so they could not comprehend how a person who writes so nicely and smoothly all of a sudden can't put two words together. What will be valued in 10 years in terms of communication? I think the ability of people to put their thoughts into words in a nice, comprehensive, authentic way. When you go on LinkedIn right now, you already see so many texts that are AI generated, and people don't even try to make it their own. You can just see the way it's written, it's AI.
Yeah.
So I believe that in some time from now, probably sooner than later, people will be proudly writing, my text is not perfect and I've written it without the help of AI. When people do not rely on AI as a communication tool, as writing and making it all perfect, this will be very valuable.
Thank you for everything.
Thank you so much for having me and for covering all kind of areas of the life mosaic.
Yeah.